Hey guys, Ricky here. And this week we have a special podcast. As you can tell, my voice is a little under the weather. I'm recovering, but what I'm posting this week is a presentation I gave on the 3 steps business leaders take to consistently win government contracts. So I think you're going to find this very helpful. We go through the 3 main parts of acquiring a federal contract. Also, I want to let you guys know that we published our book, and I use the term book loosely. It's really a planner. It's called the Government Contract Planner, and it's available on Amazon. I urge you to check it out. This is what I use, and I use with my clients to find leads, turn those leads into meetings, and then close contracts, put everything into a pipeline at the end so we can follow up with all of the leads, all the information that we captured. There's a lot of specifics when we're trying to close a government contract. And when we're getting a lead initially, we might not have a lot of time. What we've done is incorporated the blocks into the lead forms and the meeting. So it reminds you what questions to ask. What information do you need to know to ensure that you're going to be successful when you close that opportunity, when you turn that into a government contract? It's all there. Check it out. The Government Contract Planner by Richard C. Howard, available on Amazon now. And here is 3 steps business leaders take to consistently win government contracts. Enjoy.
Hey guys, I'm Ricky Howard, and this is 3 steps business leaders take to consistently win government contracts. Now, I have managed over $82 billion in federal contracts. I'm a former government acquisitions officer, so those are contracts I managed for the Department of Defense. And when I retired from the Air Force, I started a consulting company that specifically helps people sell to the US government. And my clients have won over $500 million in contracts. Now, I've also personally sold to the government, so I understand it from the government side. And I understand how to advise companies, but also I want you to know that I know what it's like to sell to the US government, to be on that end. So I've personally had to do it. And I'm host of the DoD Contract Academy podcast. You can check that out on any podcast platform. It's one of the top podcasts in government contracting. I think you could learn a lot from that, and that is free. I'm also the author of the Government Contract Planner, which you can find on Amazon. Now, government contract growth is all I do, and I help people through the 3 phases of acquiring a government contract. And those 3 phases are leads, meetings, and pipeline. I advise and train. I do a few other services as well regarding those, but this is all I do, these 3 phases of bringing in government contracts. Let's start with leads. And in order to talk to you about what I consider leads, I'm going to walk you through a few scenarios. So scenario number 1 is the government has a requirement for something that you sell, and a potential client sees a RFP or a solicitation on SAM.gov. They write a proposal and they don't get it. It looks like these solicitations were written for them, but they're not winning. And what they actually end up seeing is that their competitors are winning, and they start suspecting that these solicitations were written for their competitors. So this is scenario 1. Now, scenario 2 is you've won government contracts, but you think it's more luck than anything else. You don't have a system in place that is reliable where you can predict how much revenue is going to come in year over year from government contracting. This is very common. There's a lot of different ways to win government contracts, but not having a system in place to bring those in, not managing your leads, meetings, and pipeline effectively, you're never going to be able to predict that and grow it. The third scenario here is basically you're aware of government contracts. You don't have any. You don't know what the process is like or how much you can make in doing that, but it just seems too complicated and you don't want anything to do with it. So that's the third bucket of companies that I talk to from time to time. Now, let's talk about really what you want to pay attention to. And that is the government has the same requirement, but in this case, you find a lead for that requirement that they have maybe 6 months ahead of time. You're finding it before a solicitation ever comes out. And that gives you time to meet with them to influence the opportunity. So the government knows who you are and you're much more likely to win. Now, which example sounds like you? Most companies I talk to, frankly, the first 1A, 1B, and 1C is what they relate to. Whether they're not winning anything, they've won a few and there's no system, or they're aware, but they have no idea what the process looks like. Successful companies resonate with scene 2, where they're identifying early and influencing, and they're much more likely to win contracts. In fact, On the government side, all the companies that were going on contract, this is what they were doing. Those first three scenarios I gave you, this is where companies are floundering. They're guessing. They're not really sure what to do. And it's not their fault. This can be complicated, but we try to make it simple and crystal clear. In scene two, what's happening is when the company finds that lead ahead of time and they develop the relationship, they're positioning themselves for the win. The government knows who they are and they trust that they can provide the solution. Now, when you build a system that can identify the right kind of leads early, now what you're doing is you're putting something in place where you can eliminate the anxiety and start predicting how much revenue you're going to be able to bring in year over year. I can tell you what doesn't work. What doesn't work is looking for RFPs and RFQs and just writing proposals on those. That's not going to work out too well for you. It's not going to work out well for you if you're putting email campaigns together and blasting contracting officers or relying on certifications like 8A, SDVOSB, woman-owned small business. Having a certification doesn't bring government contracts into you. And certainly you can't expect the government to just come to you. And you'd be surprised how many people get a certification and expect that the government's going to come knocking on their door, and it never happens. Step two is meetings. And when we find leads early, our objective is to turn those into meetings so we can influence the acquisitions process and create a relationship. And companies that do this, they're seen as advisors. They're seen as almost trusted confidants to the government office because you're helping them write a solicitation. The government's not the expert at what you do. You're the expert. And this is why a market research phase in government contracting exists. So you can talk to them. So what we do is when we work with clients, we're making sure that we live in this market research phase. Now, we need to have a proven approach in order to do that because it's not intuitive how you set up a meeting with a government office that buys what you sell. So having a proven process for A, setting the meeting up, but B, what do you do when you get to that meeting? So there's a series of questions you want to ask that have to do with government procurement that's going to tell you, is this a relevant opportunity for you? When can you expect it to be awarded? Is there funding? How much can you make off of this contract? And how much ability do you have to influence it? What this does is it gives you a lot more information than anybody else has. And B, if it's not for you, you can get rid of it immediately. You don't have to waste any more time on that opportunity. And companies that do this and have a proven approach to finding those leads, setting up the meetings, and they know what to ask during those meetings, they could be more than 50 to 300% more likely to win government contracts. In fact, a lot of companies that aren't doing that aren't winning at all. So you could do the math on that. So step three is pipeline. And your pipeline is not just a spreadsheet or a CRM to track leads. The pipeline for government contracting is going to be much different than anything that you're doing in the B2B or B2C space. And that has to do with the federal acquisitions process. We want to build an opportunity engine that incorporates all of the steps that you're going to need to take with each opportunity, as well as how much you want to make each year with the government. Now, without a pipeline that's designed for federal contracting, what have you got? And I've seen this 100 different times where a company has a spreadsheet or Salesforce or something, and they have a list of a bunch of opportunities in there and they're going nowhere. They're run haphazardly. There's not a system designed for each one of those opportunities where we can see if it's been properly taken through the right process. That's what you need. And if you don't have that, you're going to waste time and money. You're not going to close contracts. And you're certainly not going to grow year over year. Now, if you want to talk about this process and how you can implement that in your company, I invite you to book a call. So that'll be a call with me. We'll talk about your business and how leads, meetings, and pipeline can be implemented or improved in your business. This is who the call is for. If you think there's more opportunity to be had for your business, and government contracting, by the way, the government is the single biggest purchaser of goods and services in the world. Average business last year made a little over $2 million a year. That's just the average business. And depending on your industry, you could do a lot better than that. If you have a product, service, technology that can make a positive impact in a government agency or the Department of Defense, the US military, if you are already selling to the government, you want to streamline your current sales process so you can increase the number of contracts that are coming in and hit higher revenue targets, then this call could be for you. It'll certainly be valuable. This is a free call. So I invite you to book that at the button below. We'll schedule a 30-minute call. We'll talk about your business and whatever struggles that you are currently going through, or if you just want to learn more about the opportunity, we can have that discussion. Thanks for watching this video. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Remember, hit that button, schedule a call, and let's see if we can win some contracts.